As usual, I will give you the basic indicators about national economic performance of May, and later I'll take your questions. In May, national economic performance is doing well, and we are picking up the recovery of the economy, facing the complicated national and international situation, and facing the huge task of COVID-19 under the strong leadership of CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core. All departments and authorities have coordinated their efforts to fight against the COVID-19 and recover our economy. In general, we are doing very well against the COVID-19. We are recovering the order of production and employment. For the major indicators, we have realized the marginal recovery, and we have also realized this restoration of momentum. First of all, for industrial production, we have started to witness growth. Large-scale industrial added value grew by 0.7% year-on-year and 6.1% month-on-month. Mining added value year-on-year grew by 7%, manufacturing up by 0.1%, electricity, thermal power, natural gas, and water production and supply up by 0.2%. Equipment manufacturing added value up by 1.1% year-on-year. Last month, it was down by 8.1%. State holding enterprises added value year-on-year grew by 0.7%, shareholding enterprises up by 2.3%, foreign invested and Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau invested enterprises down by 5.4%, private enterprises up by 1.1%. New energy vehicles, solar cells, and other clean energy products year-on-year grew by 108% and 3.4%. For the first 5 months, large-scale industrial added value year-on-year grew by 3.3%. This last month, manufacturing PMI grew month-on-month by 2.2 percentage points. For the first 5 months, enterprises generated more than 2.5 trillion yuan of benefits, up by 3.5% year-on-year. Service production indicator has narrowed down. In May, service production indicator down by 5.1%. The decline has narrowed by 1 percentage point. Information transfer software and IT services, financial indicators up by 5.5% respectively. For the first 5 months, this indicator has dropped by 0.7% for the first 4 months. Large-scale business indicator up by 4.2%. For the information transformation software and IT, as well as sanitary services, up by 8.8% and 6.6%. In May, a service business activity index went up by 7.7 percentage points compared to the last month, year-on-year growth of, and the indicator stood at 47.1. It's also at a high expansion range. In the service sector, the expectation index of business is 51.2. Market sales have gone up. Online sales and retail sales went up continuously. In May, total retail sales of social goods registered a 6.7 percentage points of decline year-on-year. Month-on-month increase of 0.05. For the urban total retail sales of consumer goods, year-on-year down by 0.7%. Rural figure down by 6.3% year-on-year. Sales of goods 3.5 trillion yuan, down by 5%. Catering revenue 370 billion yuan. Basic living sales went up continuously. Large-scale sales of beverage, food, crops up by 7.7% and 12.3%. For the first 5 months, total retail sales of the consumer goods, more than 17 trillion yuan, down by 1.5% year-on-year. Online sales, 4.9 trillion yuan, up by 2.9%. Food sold online, up by 5.6%. Its proportion in the total category is 4.9%, which is 1.1 percentage points higher than the previous month. Fixed asset investment has grown very fast, especially in the high-tech industry. For the first 5 months, in May, month-on-month increase. Infrastructure investment in manufacturing up by 10.6%. Real estate development down by 10.4%. Commercial buildings sold area went down by 23.6% year-on-year. Total sales of commercial buildings went down by 31.5%. Primary sector investment up by 5.8%, secondary industry up by 11%, tertiary by 14.1%, private investment up by 4.1%, high-tech investment up by 20.5%, among which high-tech manufacturing and high-tech services investment up by 24% and 10.8% respectively. For the medical equipment and meter management, electronic investment up by 30.4% and 29.3%. Design for high-tech, commercialization of research findings up by 20.1%, 14.9% respectively. Social area investment up by more than 10.9%. Education and medical care investment also went up. Import and export of the goods have also improved. In May, import and export year-on-year growth of 9.6%, which is 9.5 percentage points higher in the growth range. Imported more than 1 trillion yuan, up by 2.8%, and the previous month is down by 2.9%. For the first 5 months, import and export of goods more than 16 trillion yuan, up by 8.3%. Exportation up by 11.4%. Importation 7.09 trillion yuan, up by 11.47%. Private import and export accounts for 49% of the total import and export. The growth has enlarged by 1.5 percentage points. Surveyed unemployment rate dropped in the cities. For the first 5 months, newly added jobs more than 5.2 million. In May, surveyed unemployment rate in the cities dropped to 5.9%. Local registered population had unemployment rate of 5.5%, and the non-registered population with a rate of more than 6%. And unemployment rate in the 30 major cities in China was 6.9%. A producer price for industrial goods and also purchasing price for industrial producers dropped. For the food, tobacco, and beverage, year-on-year grew by 2.1%, clothing up by 0.5%, living prices up by 1%, life necessities and services up by 1.4%, transportation telecommunication up by 6.2%, education and cultural products up by 1.8%, medical products up by 0.7%, other goods and services prices up by 1.8%. In the food, beverage, and tobacco, for the pork prices, year-on-year down by 21.1%, crops up by 3.2%, fresh vegetables up by 11.6%, fresh fruit up by 19%. When we deduct the factors of energy and the food, the core CPI has leveled the last month figure. In May, there's a growth of producer price for industrial goods of 6.4%, which has narrowed down compared to the growth of the previous month. And the purchasing price for industrial producer has narrowed by 1.7%. For the first 5 months, the producer price for industrial goods, purchasing price for industrial producers up by 8.1% and 10.8%. In general, in May, we have overcome the negative impacts brought by COVID-19 in developing the national economy. We have started with the recovery process. However, we have to keep in mind the general picture of the global development. Moving forward, we have to work under the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics in a new era, and also apply the work arrangement decisions of the CPC Central Committee and the State Council to better coordinate the fight against the COVID-19 and the economic development, and also to bring to full play the package of policies to stabilize our economic growth so that we can stimulate a continuous recovery of the national economy. Now the floor is open for your questions. Please first identify yourself. Thank you. And with CMG, according to the statistics, in May, major indicators have improved. What are the reasons behind that performance, and what is your comment on that? For May, we have noticed positive changes with the national economic performance, and now we have stabilized our fight against the COVID-19. We have also witnessed positive effects coming from the policy stabilizing the economies, and also major indicators have also delivered a better performance. In many regions, there's the rebound of economic growth, mainly in the following aspects. First of all, we have more supply and production. We have better secured the logistics and transformation. We have resumed work and production. For services and industrial production, there is both a positive tendency of development. Added value up by 0.7% with the industries. For the manufacturing, up by 0.1%. In April, it was a decline. For the services, production indicator down by 5.1%. The decline has narrowed by 1.1%. For the wholesale, storage has narrowed down their decline. Second, domestic demand has been restored. Today, we are doing well in our fight against the COVID-19. We have generally resumed normal order in our production and consumption. We also have policies in place to stimulate the consumption. And the decline in market sales has narrowed down. In May, total retail sales of the consumer's goods went down by 6.7%, which has narrowed by 4 percentage points more. Fixed asset investment year-on-year grew by 6.2%, specifically up by 6.7% in infrastructure, which has expanded by 2.2 percentage points compared to the previous month. Import and export of goods have also been doing very well. Foreign trade is doing well especially for those enterprises engaged in the foreign trade. In a previous stage, they have difficulty in shipping their products, but in May, import and export of the goods has accelerated by more than 5 percentage points. Exportation went up by 15% more. Economic recovery has been consolidated. We also have policies to stabilize the employment rate. Surveyed unemployment rate, jobs in the cities in May, that figure was 5.9%, which has narrowed by 2 percentage points compared to the previous month. For the migrant workers, unemployment rate is 6.2%, which has narrowed by 0.4 percentage points compared to the previous month. And we also have policies to secure the supply and prices in the market. CPI went up by 2.1%, the same level as the previous month. For the core CPI, up by 0.9%, also same level as the previous month. It means the prices in the markets are very stable. And also we have upgraded the consumption. We have upgraded, first of all, the production, and also we are developing new boosters for the economic growth. We are marching towards a higher level of high-quality development. In May, high-tech manufacturing added value year-on-year grew by 4.3%. That growth rate has accelerated by 0.3 percentage points compared to April, higher than the general level of the large-scale industries. For the first 5 months, investment into high-tech up by a large quantity. New energy vehicles, solar cells, as well as the other new types of products have registered high growth. And sixth, in major areas hardly stricken by the COVID-19, they have accelerated with their economic recovery. We are bringing to effect our policies for the cities located in the northeastern part of China and also the Yangtze River Delta. They have started their recovery. Large-scale industrial added value in those two areas down by 3.1 and 1.1 percentage points. The decline has narrowed by more than 10 percentage points. In general, we have overcome the negative impacts brought by COVID-19. We have resumed economic performance. However, the bigger picture internationally is still very complicated. We are facing high pressure, and it's still a preliminary stage of economic recovery, and we have to further consolidate the basis for the economic recovery. Moving forward, we have to better coordinate the fight against COVID-19 and also the economic growth. We also have to bring into full play the policy packages for the stabilization of economic growth, guarantee people's daily life, and also improve our economy day by day. Thank you. On with paper. Currently, we have noticed a growing unemployment rate. And in May, we know a lot of students, they are graduating from the university and they are waiting for new jobs. What is your comment for this figure of unemployment? This is a figure that has attracted so much attention. Compared to the previous month, there is a growth in the unemployment rate. In May, we have made a turn in our fight against the COVID-19. We have gradually resumed the activities in the factories and the production areas. In general, we have improved the employment situation. Surveyed unemployment rate in cities reached 5.9% in May, which has narrowed by 0.2 percentage points compared to the previous month. For the major population seeking for jobs, 20 to 59 years old, unemployment rate is 5.1%, which has also narrowed by 0.2 percentage points compared to the previous month. This means we are improving the situation of employment. And we have also mentioned before for the surveyed unemployment rate of migrant workers. The unemployment rate for this population stood at 6.2% in May, which has narrowed by 0.4 percentage points. We know migrant workers, they work in construction of the buildings, wholesale, retails, and other labor-intensive sectors. And usually they work as self-employed or they work for private sectors. In May, migrant workers have embraced a better situation for the employment. And this means that our policy to stabilize the job market has delivered its impact. And we have also noticed that under the impact of COVID-19, we are still facing some difficulties in restoring the employment rate. And in general, that 5.9% of surveyed unemployment rate is still very high. And we also have to pay more attention to solve the problem of unemployment rate of more than 6% in the younger generation. Many enterprises have run into difficulties in a background of COVID-19. So the COVID-19 has made it more difficult for the enterprises to create more jobs. And for our younger generation, they are looking for jobs that are more permanent. For the population between 16 and 24 years old, unemployment rate in May is more than 18%. And this year, we expect to see more than 10.76 million new graduates from universities. So at one time, we have to create so many jobs for all those new graduates coming from the universities. Facing this challenging situation, we have to continue to stabilize all aspects of our national economy, to recover the national economy, to create more jobs for the people, and also to stabilize the existing jobs, help the enterprises to tide over this difficult time, and help them to secure more jobs for the new generation. We also have to make a better match between the supply and demand for the labor forces. At the same time, we also have to encourage the industries to upgrade their businesses, create more high-quality jobs, and create a better job-seeking environment for our young people coming out from the campus. Thank you. With Shenzhen TV. We've noticed that after the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, there is the food crisis in the world. The WFP and also the FAO have declared that there are multiple layers of crisis of food in the world. What is the impact of the world food crisis on China's food situation? Are there upcoming measures to stabilize the prices of the food in our market? Yes, of course, we have encountered a lot of challenging factors in the world, especially the geopolitical conflicts have brought to us new challenges, and we have noticed food price spikes in the international arena. Currently, due to the geological conflicts, food supply has become more difficult, especially in Russia and Ukraine. Food production has encountered more difficulty, which has increased the tension for the world to guarantee the food security. Many countries have also limited or even blocked their exportation of the cereals. Globally, the food crises are going up and are staying at a very high level. Facing this difficult situation, our country has continue to apply the measures to stabilize the food prices in the market. In recent years, we have attached a great importance to the production of the food, especially of the crops. For 7 years in a row, the production of the crops in our country has been stabilized at 1.3 trillion jin, and we also have a lot of stock volume in the warehouses. And the volatility level of our food and crop prices in the domestic market is lower than the international figure, and we are in the harvesting season of the summer crops. We can expect to see a very good harvest. Last year, due to the autumn flood, many regions have postponed their plantation, and they have encountered some barriers in the plantation. But this year, weather conditions are doing us a favor, and we have also strengthened the farmland management and also technical support to the farmers growing the crops. So in general, we can expect to see a very good harvest with the summer crops. This will set a solid foundation for the good harvest for the whole year of 2022. And now we are facing a complicated international picture. Moving forward, we will continue to pay more attention to the food and crop production, and we should not make the farmers worry about the upgoing prices of the entrance for agricultural farming, and we have to stabilize the output of the grains. With the Reuters, according to the indicators for April and May, is it possible, or how possible is it for us to have a positive GDP growth in the Q2? And for the slow recovery of consumption, will it be a barrier to a positive GDP growth? Thank you very much for that question. For Q2, people have attached a great importance to the economic growth rate. Because now we are living in the context of a complicated international picture, for Q2, we have an increasing downward pressure for the economic growth. Under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee, all levels of government have coordinated their efforts in COVID-19 containment and economic growth. They have stabilized the local economic development and also untangled the situation of logistics. They have lowered the burden for enterprises to operate better. And today, we have also considered the changes in our domestic picture. In the preliminary stage, we have been hit by the COVID-19, but now we are recovering. In April, many indicators have gone down, and in May, we have noticed many positive and optimistic performance. But still, for some major figures and indicators, there is the downward development. In June, we can expect to see further improvement. First of all, for the demand-driven economic growth, we have stronger willingness to invest, and there's greater volume of investment. For the first 5 months of this year, investment into infrastructure went up by 10.6%, for the equipment up by 22%. For the first 5 months, infrastructure investment year-on-year grew by 6.7%, which has expanded by 2 percentage points compared to April. For the newly started projects, investment volume year-on-year up by more than 23%. For the consumption and also the foreign trade in May, total retail sales has narrowed its decline. Now we are restoring the normal order of consumption and production. There will be a greater strength from the consumption side. Foreign trade has been very resilient. Also for May, enterprises engaged in foreign trade, they have picked up their activities, and there's more shipping for their goods. There will be further driving force from this sector. For industrial production, there's a positive growth in May. Enterprises have resumed their business and production, especially for those enterprises that have suffered a lot preliminary from the COVID-19. They will continue to become a boosting force for the economic growth. For Jilin and Shanghai and other places, there's a significant change in the economic growth towards the positive side. Service indicators have narrowed their decline, and because we are resuming normal order for life and supply, there is also the good momentum to improve the service sector. In May, for the PMI, expectation of business activity has realized a level of 55.2. For logistics and transportation in May, the circulation of the goods year-on-year up by 3.4%, up by 0.3 percentage points compared to April. For the throughput of containers, they registered a positive growth, up by 4.3% year-on-year. And because we are guaranteeing the supply and also we are stabilizing the transportation, we can see better circulation of the goods next month. For the CPI, we have measures in place to stabilize the price. For the raw coal and raw steel and natural gas, up by 10.3% and 6.9%. And we have also narrowed down the growth of PPI. In May, PPI grew 6.4% year-on-year, down by 1.6% compared to the previous month. PPI has dropped. This means that the enterprises located in the downstream of the production chain will have a lower economic burden, facing a complicated situation at home and abroad, and also the tension created by COVID-19. We have not only applied existing policies, but also we have noticed that the State Council has published 33 more articles of preferential policies. Local departments and also governments, they are applying the new policies generated by the State Council. Though all those measures can continue to deliver more positive effects next month. Large-scale application of the VAT credit refund has enabled enterprises to work better. And we also have other measures to support the real economy and also to ease the financial burden for the enterprises. If we can continue to improve the situation in our fight against the COVID-19 and also bring into full play the existing policies to stabilize the economic development, then we can see a rational economic growth in Q2. And for the consumption mentioned in your question, currently, due to COVID-19, we are still recovering the consumption, but we have noticed that we are also making an effort to contain the pandemic. We are stabilizing the jobs. In general, we are still very optimistic about the recovery of consumption. Next question, please. From the South China Morning Post. In a previous video conference, it is said that the National Bureau of Statistics will continue to disclose the information and the statistics. And during his visit in Sichuan province, President Xi has mentioned that we have to deliver real statistics and we should not falsify the data. What is the comment from your side? How can you apply the policies from the central level? And thank you very much for your attention attached to the work of our side. For the Q2 major indicators of different localities, currently the MBS is working with relevant departments to continue with our researches. We will continue to strengthen the high-quality production of the data, especially for Q2. For the quality of the data, we will make an improvement, and according to the requirements and according to the law, we will make the disclosure of the information about all the different regions and localities in Q2. Thank you very much for your attention attached to this issue, and if we have new information to release, we will make it in a timely manner. And also for the falsification of the data, actually, quality of the data is the baseline. The falsification of the data is something we have to crack down. Since the 18th Congress of the CPC, the National Bureau of Statistics has worked diligently under the declaration and guidance of President Xi and the CPC Central Committee and the State Council. We have done our best to apply the application of the upper authorities, and we have consolidated the basis of our fight against the falsification of the data. We also have very strict measures in place to fight against those wrongdoings. In order to improve the data quality, we have created this very sound environment and enabling conditions. Still, we have also noticed in some local levels, there is still the continuous tendency of the falsification of statistics, and our authority, the MBS, will continue to fight against this trend. We have this mobilizing conference for certain areas. For those law-violating cases, we have first of all disclosed them to the public, and also we have punished all the wrongdoers. For example, from Guizhou province, Henan province, and Hebei province, we have already reported the related cases of the wrongdoings, the falsification of data. We have punished the criminals. Moving forward, MBS will continue to apply the necessary measures for areas closely related to the falsification of the data. We will apply strict measures to fight against those wrongdoings. And we will continue to consolidate the specific programs and also carry out targeted efforts. We will also do the reviews to fight against the falsification of the statistics. We will establish a responsibility system and accountability system. For the revise of the statistics, we have a system to follow. This is also a common rule for our colleagues in the whole world. We have the system of statistics and also different documentations of the statistics. Sometimes, if necessary, we will do the modification. In 2008, we have modified a little bit our calculation method. For the R&D, in the past, we consider it as the cost, and later on, we deem it as an investment. And for the changes in the source of documentation, we also have to see the changes and later change our system. For the calculation of the GDP, we will do 2 rounds of the verification, 1 preliminary and 1 final calculation. For the preliminary one, we will do a quick report, and for the final verification, we rely on the annual statistics. Usually for the preliminary calculation, it's quite limited in the source of the data, and for the final report, of course, it's more complete and it's more trustworthy. Sometimes, because we want the data in an efficient manner, so we can first of all use the preliminary verification report. But in order to have the exact and the verified report, we have to wait for the final report of the verification. So that's why sometimes you can see some gap of the data from the preliminary report and the final report. But both of them are run according to the rules. I'm from CNBC. I have a question about the real estate. For the fixed asset investment into the commercial buildings, there's a drop of this kind of investment. So, what's the impact on the general performance of the national economy? And for employment, from this rural area to the cities, or the other way around, have you noticed any signs of circulation of people? Thank you very much for this question. The first question is about investment in the real estate sector. Until now, in this year, there's the downward development of the real estate market. For the sales, for the first 5 months, commercial buildings sold area and volume down by 23% and 31%, which has expanded by 2.7 and 2 percentage points respectively. For the construction side, for the first 5 months, real estate newly started projects have dropped in the area investment down by 4%, which has expanded by 1.3 percentage points compared to the previous month. For the capital received, down by 25.8%, which has expanded by 2.2 percentage points compared to the previous month. In spite of that change and drop, specifically for the investment in the real estate market, but we have already applied a long-term mechanism of the management and operation of the real estate market. We have decided to stabilize the pricing of the properties, especially for the permanent houses for living. Recently, in different areas, they have also applied measures to stabilize the development of the real estate market. Multiple measures have been applied to satisfy the rational needs of the residents. Especially for the mid and long-term development, we have lowered the credit interest rates for the mortgage loans. Recently, according to the results of our investigation, the market of real estate has already embraced some positive changes. For the real estate market, there's a very long chain of production, and they can also drive the growth of many other related areas. If we can stabilize the real estate market, then for the second half of this year, they will continue to stabilize the national economic recovery. Still, for the real estate market, we have to ensure its healthy development. We have to stick to the principles that houses are for living and not for speculation. We have to respond to the rational demands of the people for the houses. Second question is about the employment. In my responses to previous questions, I talked about the unemployment and jobs creation. In May, we have improved the employment situation. For the urban and rural changes of the jobs, in recent years, the urban job creation has accounted for a bigger share in the total creation of jobs. And this year, in the beginning, hit by COVID-19, unemployment rate has gone up. Whether it will have a serious impact on the national economy, we have to wait and see. Until now, what we can observe is that it's only a short-term impact, and urban jobs will continue to be a major part of the total job creation. With CNS, industrial sector has registered positive growth in May. And what is the explanation? What is the future development in May? Because we have stabilized our fight against COVID-19, we have untangled the logistics and circulation of goods. Industrial production has registered positive growth. Its growth rate has turned positive. In May, large-scale industrial added value year-on-year grew by 0.7%. In the previous month, it's down by 2.9%. For major sectors and businesses and areas, they have registered positive growth. For the 32 major industry sectors, they have registered a positive growth representing 85%. 22 major regions, there's the positive growth of industrial growth representing 71%, among which Shanghai and Jilin province. The drop in the industrial production has narrowed by more than 30 percentage points. Equipment production has also picked up. For the major supply chain, we have policies to guarantee their operation and resumption of work. Production has recovered. Equipment production up by 1.1% in May. In April, it's a negative growth. In the automobile manufacturing has narrowed its downward decline. And third, high-tech manufacturing has registered very good growth momentum. High-tech manufacturing has demonstrated high resilience with a growth rate higher than the average. High-tech manufacturing up by 4.3%, which has accelerated by 0.3 percentage points compared to the previous month, and that level is higher than the average. Electronics and telecommunication up by 10.9%, medical equipment and measurement meters up by 9.4%. And for industrial exportation grew very fast because we have untangled the logistics and transfer and circulation of the goods. Industrial exportation has bounced back. In May, large-scale industrial exportation has delivered a value of a growth of 11.1%. Previous month, down by 1.9%. For the general customs, according to their data, in May, exportation up by 15.3%. According to all those data, industrial activities are recovering, and there is the continuous tendency of the upgrading of the industrial sector. We have a very complete system, and we also have a very high level of resilience. Because we are stabilizing the society against the COVID-19, we are resuming the work and operation of enterprises. Industrial sector can embrace more potential growth. Of course, some enterprises have run into difficulties. There's the drop in their revenue and profit. And also the downstream enterprises with a small and medium size, they have a huge burden. So we have to apply more policies to lower their financial burden and also to better untangle the logistics and the circulation of the merchandises and also to support the national growth. Thank you. Since May, for the petroleum and also for the natural gas, there's greater scale of exploitation. In summer, we have higher demand for the energy. What is the future development trend for the energy sector? Thank you. Thank you for your question. For energy supply, we have attached great importance to that. And due to the international events, there's a heavy growth in the energy prices. Facing that international tension, domestically, we have applied more measures to stabilize the price and also the demand and also the supply to satisfy the demand. For the energy supply, we have the guarantee measures in place. As you know, that in China, for oil and gas, we are partly dependent on the importation, but we are mostly dependent on the charcoal, and we also have a large quantity of stock of charcoal, and the production of charcoal has registered fast growth. In May, there's a growth of more than 10% of charcoal production, and the price of charcoal has dropped. According to all those above-mentioned indicators, and also considering the diversification of sources of energy supply, we are doing well, and we are also developing new energies. There's a heavy growth of new energies in May. Clean energy has registered a double-digit growth of power generation. This is also a contributing factor to the stabilizing of the energy prices. Though internationally there is the heavy growth of the prices, but still the prices growth in domestic market is much lower than that in the international market. Do you have any further questions? If no, then I'd like to close today's press conference. Thank you very much, DG Mr. Fu, and thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.